Welcome, everyone. I am here, as always, chatting with a college prep guru to bring you the tips and advice that you need to prepare for college and for scholarships. Today, I am chatting with Alexis Avila, founder of Prepped and Polished, and an expert on all things tutoring and test prep. Welcome, Alexis.
Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Of course. Happy to have you here. So, to kick things off, tell us how you got into this work.
Well, in high school, I started off doing really well freshman year, and then all of a sudden I hung out with some of the wrong kids, and then I saw my grades dip dramatically. This teacher just basically took me from an A- to a C- in 1 quarter, and I didn't recover until junior year. Where I found a teacher who believed in me, gave me an A+ on a paper, English paper I really worked hard on a rigorous English course. And all of a sudden I'm believing in myself again. And I pulled it together. I got straight A's, 4.0, junior year and senior, got into Michigan. And I just kind of wanted to get back. So that's kind of, I became a guidance counselor. I didn't really enjoy the job, to be honest. I just felt like I was wearing too many hats in the high school, and I really just wanted to help people one-on-one. So the tutoring really fulfills that need. So I've been doing that since 2002 full-time and part-time since 99 to 2002. So I got quite a bit of experience now.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's funny you mentioned that about the counselor, because that's something we talk about a lot, that, parents sometimes put a little bit too much pressure on the counselor to take care of a lot of this stuff and don't realize how busy they are with all these different, not even overlapping job responsibilities, So that can be hectic.
Absolutely, and that's why it's important, to your services are so important, and private, having a private counselor maybe help you if you can afford it. There's a lot of good free resources as well, so I'm sure you talk about that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, we do. So let's dig into the tutoring side of things. There's a lot of tutors out there, as I'm sure you know. Do you have any advice for families as they're trying to pick the right one, or there's specific qualities they should be looking for?
Yeah, you have to find a tutor that's experienced, and because experience means that the tutor will be confident in relaying, helping you understand the information, so look at this tutor's resume, and then obviously you want a tutor who's very knowledgeable, a tutor who can do really well on standardized tests, for example. Because that's just going to give the tutor, again, the tutor is going to instill confidence in you if he has the knowledge and experience. Another thing you want to look for is a tutor who is upbeat. There's a lot of tutors who are super smart, but they just are kind of like, I wouldn't want to say Debbie Downers, but they're just like a little bit like they get frustrated, then you get frustrated as a student. Instead, you want a tutor who really pats you on the back and encourages you to continue if you make some mistakes, because you're going to make a few on an SAT. And then the third tip I would say is you want a tutor, and this is, I don't feel like all tutors have this, but you want a tutor who can be a really good listener and who is perceptive. That means they can kind of walk into a room, meet the student, and kind of see what type of personality the student is, and will be able to kind of really tap into that students' intrinsic motivation quicker, which is key.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that it's an important thing to have their personalities be a good fit as well? I mean, I know personally being a tutor that sometimes you can get a little bit of conflict if your personalities just don't really mesh.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it's yes and no. You don't. I mean, look, you're not going to find a twin of a tutor who's exactly like you, looks like you, has the same exact personality. Does it help? Yeah. For example, sometimes I will pair a young female, 16-year-old female, with a female tutor, female mentor, because I just see that the tutor, the student could really thrive under that tutelage. So sometimes I do that. But for the most part, the tutor has to be an adult has to be able to. It's about the student. It's not about the tutor. So if the tutor has that kind of personality where he can adapt to fit the tutee's personality, I think that's even better.
Yeah. Great advice. Okay, well, let's dig into the test prep piece a little bit more, because I know a lot of families are interested in that.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm sure that a lot of them watching this are aware that preparing for those tests starts in advance, at least a few weeks, preferably I'm sure some months before the test actually happens. But what are some tips for the student the day before, maybe even the day of the test?
Well, what you want to do is you want to make sure you pack all your stuff the day before the exam, so that it's all about making sure that you can lessen your anxiety. So if you pack all your admission ticket, make sure your wallet is close by, you have your sharpened number 2 pencils, calculator, fresh batteries, the night before, it's going to make the next morning so much easier for you, and you want to really do that. And I also tell students to know in advance how to get to the testing site, because I've had students arrive late because they didn't know how to get to it. Yeah. And then what that means is when you arrive late, yes, they'll let you in, but you'll be joined. They don't stop the test for one student. So you're going to walk into the middle of section 1 and have like 10 minutes to do section 1. So that's not great. Confidence builder going into the rest of the test. And then I tell students to eat an enjoyable meal and relax. And if they're now a lot of students, especially students who are just like really social, like to hang out with friends, I say, look, if you're going to go to a movie, don't go to a 7 o'clock movie, because if you think about it, a 7 o'clock starts at like 7:25, whatever. You're going to get out at 10. And then you're going to get home around like 10:30, 11, and that's not getting into a test prep mindset. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to go to a movie, maybe go to a 5 or just stay at home. And then also don't cram, because I know some students will cram to the nth hour, but it's proven it doesn't work into your long-term memory. All your preparation has, led up to this point, so just kind of be confident in what you've learned, leading up to the test. You can memorize maybe some vocab words or something, because that's not going to really burn you out, or maybe a couple math formulas, but just read and relax the night before. And then just get to sleep early, because you're going to wake up early. And then on Saturday, because you're going to wake up early, it'll give so you can get into your morning routine. You know where your backpack is, and then what you want to do is eat a really good breakfast that's full of protein and carbs. So you don't want to eat fried, sugary, high fatty foods, because what that's going to do. And I'm not like some health guru. I'm just basically saying, like, think about the science. If you're eating like a bunch of fried donuts, you're going to really crash during section 3. And remember, the SAT has 4 or 5 sections if you're doing the essay. Instead, what you want to do is have like 2 scrambled eggs, some whole grain toast, glass of orange juice. That's a great breakfast. Maybe some steel cut oats, skim milk topped with berries, or whole grain toast with a thin layer of peanut butter, and sliced bananas. That's going to really sustain your energy from start to finish. You can wake up your brain and do a few math problems, but easy ones. Don't do hard ones, because again, that's going to stress you out if you stumble on finding an answer. That will kind of wake up your brain. Leave for the test site early, because if you go to the test site on time or late, they put you into the last room where you're stuck with all the knuckleheads who didn't really study, and they're going to be making noise and distracting you and taking you off your game. So try to get there early so you get maybe a better seat if possible. And then if you're going to, one advice for a test during break, a good test snack is dark chocolate, because it's lower in sugar, so you won't really crash and burn, but it'll give you like a little bit of that caffeine, and it'll give you some of that energy without crashing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up like the fried foods and donuts. I had a professor in college who every time we had a test, he brought donuts for the entire class, because he said it would give us instant energy. But we're talking about, a 30-minute test, not a marathon of a test, So yeah. Very different strategy.
Much different. Yeah. So he was really good advice. bring on the donuts for that in that case. But
yes, and we were not upset about the donuts. So I know that one thing you specialize in particular is working with students who maybe struggle with learning challenges. And so could you give us some tips for those students?
Yeah, I've been taking my myself on the road a little bit, talking about 7 learning disability types, and I'm sure we can save that for another conversation if we're going to go through in depth with how you can prepare for a test if you say have nonverbal learning disorder. But let's just take like a classic case. A lot of people can identify with maybe a little bit of ADHD. Maybe they're a little on the hyperactive side. So, when you go into a test, you might struggle with like getting things started, like starting to like get your homework out and prepare for the SAT. So what you really want to do is try to get that student engaged with the questions and underline as they reading passages and math problems, and try to find the key vocabulary so they don't get tricked and trapped. Sometimes students with hyperactive issues have impulsivity issues. So, in my tutoring room, I have a stress ball. We teach them how to breathe, before they engage in test prep. Deep belly breaths, and also we teach them how to really think for themselves before they impulsively go to one of those tricky answer choices, 4 or 5 answer choices. So you want to make sure that you solve the problem before you actually go to the answers and start getting trapped. And then in terms of, they get easily distracted. So ADHD students, sometimes I recommend to, set up your time with your tutor in 10 to 15 minute increments, stations, so that you're doing like 15 minutes of math. And then you can kind of shift gears to reading, and so on and so on. And then another thing I really recommend is to keep, when you're studying at home, to make technology free a priority. And what that means is, it's important to work in a traffic-free, noise-free environment when you're doing your SAT homework, because on SAT day, there's not going to be any, your mom's not going to be baking a cake or whatever behind you, and your big brother is not going to be running around. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be focused. So I want you to kind of get engaged into that kind of environment. Make sure that when you study, either study in your room, if you have like a brightly lit desk, or go to a corner of your house, away from the kitchen, the busy hustle and bustle. And then when it's study time, tell your friends that, and set a limit to, make sure you turn off, your chat that will pop up on your computer screen. You turn off your phone. Your friends will understand if you let them know, but if you don't, they're gonna bother you every 5 minutes when you're studying, and it's really important. And then basically reward yourself, like turn it back on when you're done studying. Go nuts, go on Facebook if that's your preferred social media forum. And then finally, I recommend ditching the music. And I know you're gonna have like some people say, well, it's okay if it's like mellow, Enya playing in the background, or it's classical music. But guess what? When SAT Saturday hits, you're not gonna have Tchaikovsky playing over the loudspeaker. Okay, you're gonna hear kids sneezing to your right and left, and you're gonna hear the pencil marks. That's all you're gonna hear. That's only music. So why not get yourself accustomed to that situation?
Yeah.
So ditch the music when you're studying.
Absolutely. Great tips. And I'm sure most people wouldn't think about that, putting yourself in the situation and the mindset of what you'll be in test day. It's easy to forget, well, this is the best way I study,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing before we wrap up that I want to mention to everyone is that you have a phenomenal resource for families on the college-bound journey called the Prepped and Polished Podcast, which I was honored to be a guest on. Thank you. But tell us about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, we've had 170 episodes, so I've been kind of doing this for a good 3 years. Wow. And it's awesome, as you know, because you get to meet really inspiring people who are really making a difference. And some people are really famous, and it gives you a chance to really interview people who are, influencers in the world of education. So I've had, yourself, I had Frank Bruni on the show, who's a New York Times columnist, who, best-selling author. So, look, your episode was very popular, so I love what we talked about. And you can get that on my website, it's preppedandpolished.com/podcast. So
awesome. Yeah, it's a great resource. And I know in particular, podcasts are very popular. And so for me specifically, I love listening to podcasts because I like to just put my headphones in and listen to it in the car or whatnot. But some people I know like videos, so that's why we're doing this. But I'm a fan of the podcast. That's my jam.
Me too. That's what I do too. And if you're going to the gym or going to the grocery store, you got 15-minute commute, just pop in a podcast. You're going to learn a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, so I agree.
We'll share the link to that because it is a great resource, so thank you again.
Thank you.
But to wrap things up, do you have any other tips or tricks to share with families on the college-bound journey?
I mean, basically make sure that if you have any reading issues or math gaps in your knowledge, just don't procrastinate. Make sure that you prep far ahead of time. Whether you go for a private tutor like myself, if you can afford it, I'll help you. I can't help you learn to read overnight. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So just make sure like sophomore year, you're really thinking about, starting to kind of work on your reading comprehension skills and read the New York magazine, New York Times or New Yorker. A lot of good vocabulary in there will help you become a better reader. That's what I recommend right now.
Yeah.
So.
Great advice, and that planning early always is key, and that's what we're all about. So I think that's a great place to end. So thank you again for joining us.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate it, but it sounds like we'll definitely have to have you back and dig into some of these topics we didn't even get to really touch too much on today. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.